So for today's topic on my channel talking about video game hunting, video game collecting, we're going to be talking about audiovisual standards, which is something that I don't think anybody else has really talked about. And specifically, what I'm getting at is a lot of the time people will talk about visual fidelity. They'll talk about, running in high def or ultra high def. And some people will even say, well, with the 360 versus the PS3, they say, well, I'm not going to play the 360 because it's only 720p. And, well, I only want to play in 1080p. And sometimes when people start talking about televisions, it'll be the same thing. They'll say, well, I only want 1080p. It's got to be 1080p or higher. Now, with Ultra HD, there's going to be people who are probably going to say, well, I only want Ultra HD. No, nothing less will suffice. And I remember at one point I was talking about a projector, which is what I have, and I was talking about it to another student at the college where I was getting my degree, and he said, "Oh no, 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 no! I would never get a projector because no, the picture's not nearly as good as my television. Oh, I could never have that washed out, awful picture." And this is something which is very interesting to me because basically picture quality is completely subjective. You can't look at a picture and say, this is better. A good example of this is my sister happens to love old movies, and she said, I like the VHS color bleed. I like the look of film grain. What is color bleed? What is film grain? It's a type of distortion. The editors on CNET would say, oh, this is adulterating the picture. This is ruining the pure visual experience of... It's subjective. Some people like it, some people don't. Same thing goes for audio. A lot of audiophiles would say that digital audio is terrible. It's soulless. It, cuts the life out of the sound, and they'll swear by record players. I have one myself. But, there's people who go digital and they go, lossless digital sound. There's people who are going to be advocating for, digital optical connections and all this sort of thing. But one thing I think is very interesting is that, and missing from a lot of the discussions, is how do different sorts of generations compare in their quality through current equipment. So, for instance, I have a plasma TV in my bedroom, which is 720p, and I have a projector in my living room. The projector is only 720p as well. And you would say, well, then that's probably not as good as a 1080p. This is completely untrue. Because for the average person, you're not going to be able to tell the difference between 720p and 1080p unless you're looking at an astronomically huge picture. My living room, it's probably only about 60 to 80 inches, and my bedroom TV is only about 42 inches. You're not really going to see the difference until you go up to about 100-inch or more. So, you can tell the difference if you're in one of those home theater stores and you're looking at the biggest TV they have, and it's 1080p, oh yeah, you can tell the difference if you're 2 inches away from it. But if you're 10 feet away, 20 feet away, it's hard to tell. So I'm a big advocate of 720p, but there's another reason for that. Again, talking about, image quality being subjective, I happen to like my image slightly soft. If you are running something in its non-native resolution and any display device that came after LCD monitors, basically, it is going to resample the image. And what happens is when you resample an image, it is digitally distorting it in order to resize it and smooth it. So, for instance, if you were to take a small resolution image and open it up in Paint or Photoshop or, iFranView or something, and resample it at a larger resolution, what happens? It takes a small image and it does what a scanner does when you take a 300 dpi scanner and tell it to put in 1200 dpi. It pixel doubles until it gets the desired resolution. What this does with a scanned still photo is it removes those ugly scan lines that you used to get in really lousy scans, like newspaper scans. By combining the resolution over and over and over again, you have, like, what 480p, 720p, it's a progressive picture. You're progressively adding more picture data until it simulates a higher resolution. For someone like me who happens to like a smooth picture, the effect is quite pleasing to the eye. A lot of the time, poor picture quality is not resolution that's the problem. It's distortion, which is, disliked for some reason. Rolling scan lines. You can get these through component, that have the green, red, blue. Yeah, those. You can get scan lines through those because they're analog, even though they're HD. They're subject to EMI, electromagnetic interference, and then you get the scan lines. They look hideous. There are DVDs which, even though they're DVDs, they were mastered off of a VHS transfer and they look like crud. Whereas you have DVDs that were pulled off of an HD master that was created for a Blu-ray, and the DVD looks absolutely amazing, even though it's not at HD quality. It looks HD quality because it was mastered from HD quality. So, kind of what we're just talking about here is when you're talking about picture quality, you have to be objective, not subjective. You can't say, well, high resolution's better. It's not always better. The most important qualities are, the fidelity of the picture. Was it distorted in some way? Has some of the image been lost? Contrast is very important. Are your blacks black? Are your whites white? Color and smoothness. So, for instance, I happen to like movies with a lot of CGI blending with animation, with live action movies like, Speed Racer, Sky Captain, The World of Tomorrow, Pacific Rim. The colors on these movies absolutely pop on my projector. It's running through HDMI. It's 720p, and I have it on a black sheet on the wall so that the blacks are as black as possible, and I'll lower the lights as low as they'll go. If you remember any of those video game displays in stores when they first had the 480p display LCDs, they looked absolutely horrendous because the progressive scan would reveal all of the flaws in the original picture, whereas the interlacing of a regular 480i television would smooth the picture. So I would say, to someone who was really broke, if you couldn't, go HD, you're running old video game systems, you want to be running with, the regular RCA jacks, and you want to be 480i because the picture is going to be smoother. A high-quality television at 480i is going to look better than 480p because it's not going to look horrifically pixelated. When it comes to video game systems themselves, there's also different types of visual distortion. The Dreamcast had a certain draw distance, and then everything would go blurry. The PlayStation systems, PlayStation 2 and 3, both have horrible, horrible interlacing problems. Even some of the best games for their systems suffered from aliasing. Power line effect, where you see these jaggies and aliasing. It's one of the worst things you encounter. But, my whole point of my whole rant here is when you start talking about which, video format is the best, take a good hard look at it, see how does it actually look. Not just is it, necessarily clearer, or is it, sharper, or is it higher definition, higher resolution. Do I like how it looks? That's a big question. You may find S-Video doesn't look as good as, RCA jacks. I got a VGA adapter for my Dreamcast. I decided I didn't like how it looked. I liked the RCA jacks more because, again, I like a softer picture versus a pixelated higher resolution picture. I didn't like the 480p. I liked the 480i better. So it's definitely something to, to consider when you're doing your audio visual, making your adjustments. Don't just go according to what people says is the best. Compare and then make a decision based on how you feel looking at the actual difference between them. When you're buying a television or a projector, try to look at it, in the store, and actually not just look at the specs, but actually look at, does the picture look good? Do I like it? Is it natural looking? That's something you can't benchmark. Does it look natural? Does it look right? Does it look good? And pay no attention to price until you see one that you think looks good. And also, of course, in stores, beware of, the specs brightness being cranked up to 10 times what will actually be in your house. A lot of the time, they will actually look much better when you take them home because you're going to turn the contrast up and turn the brightness down, and you're going to turn the sharpness down, and the image is going to be a little bit softer, a little bit smoother, and it's going to look a bit better. For my money, if I wasn't running a projector, I would always want to run plasma if you can get one, just because they're such a good value and they produce such beautiful, beautiful blacks and colors. They do suffer from screen burn-in, but, you know, that's another subject for another day. Thanks for tuning in.